So there was loads of great visual feast in that film, and lots of information about this particular commission. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an artist and your artistic practice, the range of media that you work in, and the narratives that you like to explore through your work.
Yeah, I'm 62. Hello, and I'm happy to see really familiar faces, people I've worked with in the Harris team. From the most senior to the most junior, and the two curators. I'm really happy to be here today on my fourth trip, I started as a son of two military officers in the medical corps of the Egyptian army. And so always I got instructions, right? Like I had to follow. So, and this took me to medicine later on. But as a child, I had the privilege of painting all the time. I grew up during a time in which Egypt adopted a Soviet model of socialism. So we had no toys as children. I'm born 1963. At the time of Egypt had this, always had this confrontation with Israel. My father was on the front line. My mother was a mother and a father. But also she was in the medical corps, dressed up in military gear, being a doctor, cardiologist. But the thing is, this probably because my father was not there, I was given the colors to play with. And my early memories is being punished because doing it on the walls. And of course, like at that time, this was horribly expensive, relatively. The fact that my generation had no toys, and we had only like reading, writing, and going to the Egyptian Museum and stuff like that. Maybe it helped me a lot. Seeing all those Egyptian walls, like in the Egyptian Museum, papyrus, going to places like the Saqqara, the first pyramid ever built, having all those books about this ancient Egyptian culture. Probably since the age of 5, I'm doing the same thing as a painter. Consistency and this obsession with telling a story through painting. I'm a storyteller principally. I'm not an abstract painter. I tried it for like 5-6 years early in my career, and I discovered that this is not my vocal dimension. I'm not made to just for the aesthetics. I always need to tell a story. So being who I am, and I had to follow orders. I had to go to medical school, right? But that's when I started studying in the evening classes of the Cairo Fine Arts behind the back of my parents. Because, to protect yourself, getting orders all the time, instructions from up, down. I was always down, by the way. So instructions go that way. The flow of communication, poured on me. So you learn how to lie, how to protect yourself principally. It was a type of really protection to hide what you want to do. This reflex helps me, probably this skill helps me up till this day, is that you speak about the project when it's done. So I followed the evening classes, and I was lucky, or it was the providence or God or whoever is up there, I trained with two painters who are really in the Egyptian art history of the 20th century. They trained one in Italy, one in Spain. So Zakaria Zaini and Hamid Nada, those are painters who actually sell today in Christie's and Sotheby's, which actually gave me good foundations to be a painter. So everything started with painting, but one of my professors met the painter Giorgio Morandi in Italy when he was in Italy in the 60s. And Giorgio Morandi always kept used to build cameras or used to keep a camera in his hand. So my professor was building those pinhole cameras and doing all those tricks, actually teaching his students of painting how to do photographs and how to actually paint from photographs, which was sacrilegious in art education in a lot of art academies, because usually you paint still live from live, live at the studio in front of everybody, because they have to give you marks and they have to grade you. But with him, he was super open that, and he always said, you want to copy, you want to trace, you want to paint from photographs, just paint. The most important thing is to go on painting. And this took me to painting. So I had my first solo before I graduated before I got my bachelor in medical school. But early on in medical school, it was clear in my mind that within a few years, I'll find a way in which to find a job to finance my art. Along the way, as a student, I worked as a radio announcer. I worked as a translator at the Egyptian TV, always because the money was needed to buy canvas and buy art supplies.
So you feel quite at home with the microphone as a former radio announcer?
Well, this was 35 years ago, but yes. Yes, like having been, being 62 now, I mean, like I look at the journey, it was a long way to be at the Harris, actually.
Absolutely. And there's a real range of media out there, and actually
Yes.
painting doesn't feature a large part of that, but really intricate, paper cut work. And do you think your scientific background or your medical background has sort of influenced your practice in that quite precise way of working?
I think this is a brilliant question because, yes, the answer is straightforward, yes. Because, like first, the lack of painting in this commission, it's a curatorial decision, actually. The curators and myself, we decided that we can really, because the wall is the painting, this is Egypt, Egyptians painted on walls. There were, it was the most logical things to work directly on the wall. And the thing is, Egyptian painters worked in teams. That's when the community came. It was also a curatorial decision that we do something with the community that would fit more, find this connection between Preston and between the United Kingdom, both, at the macro level and micro level. But the scientific, getting to the scientific part, me having studied the scientific method, which is observation, interpretation, hypotheses, testability, verifiability, repeatability. It helped me a lot. It helps me a lot every single day in my creative research, because that's how I researched the Egyptian cotton, the relationship, because artists today, many of those in art education institutions, it's a problem because I teach also at the university level, undergraduate and postgraduate. The problem when in humanities and social sciences, when we speak about colonialism, it's always like the bad colonizer and the subject, which is the victim. And I hate that. Honestly, I hate it. It's respected as an approach, but I would never do that because I believe in the exchange.
Yeah, you've talked about this a lot in your work, haven't you, about those sort of cultural and economic exchanges?
Sure, because I'm speaking English now because I went to an Irish Catholic school in Cairo. I was born Muslim. My parents put me in an Irish Catholic school because it was a good education. So the thing is, and I did not become Catholic. So the thing here is, it's not forcibly. You don't inflict anything on anyone. Yes, it was a time in which the entire world invaded everybody, and it was an imperial time. Like now, actually, it's just a different way. Now, in the political science theory, it's called neo-mercantilism, in which you protect your markets by opening the markets by force, by the tanks and the aeroplanes. At that time, it was not like that. It was tanks and aeroplanes, not neo-mercantilism. We did not speak economics overtly. Now, you find the guy who's telling you, we're taking that part because it's the rationale of, like, the United States or whatever, the country that decides. I think we as humans, let me speak about a point in which I talked in the film. Egyptians were the first to weave clothes as we know today, like the first fashion is Egyptian or Mesopotamian, and we always fight with the Iraqis there. Was it the Egyptians or the Mesopotamians? We have the record. They have the record that they invented the first letters, but we invented the first language, in which there was past, present, future, future perfect, past perfect. This is Egyptian certain so far. It could change in archaeology after a while. But textile, we have it. And we had the mills in the 18th century. But when the British came, they improved it. And they were interested in the cotton, yes, of course. Mm-hmm. And they got the cotton at a premium price, but they did not steal it. They got it at a premium price. Yes, if you look, you ideologically can turn it around and say, yes, but they controlled the entire thing. Honestly, Egypt was occupied by the Ottomans when the British came, occupied the Ottomans in Egypt. So Egypt was double occupied, 2 layers. But at the end of the day, we had the families who controlled this agriculture. They were very well paid. Farmers were not worldwide, but it was not slavery. Egypt, did not have slavery since the 15th century. We don't have slavery. But farmers were treated like slaves sometimes, yes, of course. But this was the language of the world then. When, when the civilized concepts started to come, I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about the improved railway, the improved, Egypt Air is the first Middle East Arab, African, because we had aviation as early as the United Kingdom had it. So simply I'd like to talk about those. We had the first female pilot in 1920 plus, she was British trained. The first female pilot, girls started to drive in Saudi Arabia 2 years ago. So eventually, this is the part of exchange I'd like to address as an artist. Looking at, because we need to move forwards and we need to exorcise our own demons. And we look at actually what happened. So my grandfather was a separatist. You know that, you're about to talk about that.
I was tempted to introduce you as the grandson of a king.
Yes, he was a king for 100 days, and they were about to actually issue banknotes. But the interesting thing, do you know that the Egyptian banknote today is still made by the British company that made the banknote 100 years ago? It's called now Larue, but before that, because Larue took over the company, the first company that, so the company that makes your £5 is the company that makes our £5, this plastic money, the interesting thing. So we had banknotes, we had stamps during that time. It's a British introduction to Egypt. Yes, we had fantastic colonial architecture from the 18th, 19th century because of the Austro-Hungarian architects and the Italian architects, because actually during the Ottoman Empire, the Egyptian kings, and before that they were called viceroys, and later the king, they always felt closer to the Axis, not the Allies, because the Allies occupied us. So, it's always this resistance. It went the other way. My grandfather, when he resisted, he still had his suits. He had a tailor coming from Savile Row to Cairo. And Cairo, all the tailors were like either English, Italian, French, Armenian, actually. We had Hungarians. We had the downtown Cairo was loaded with, it was a truly cosmopolitan city, Cairo and Alexandria, two cities. The rest of the country was, yes, rural. It was not at all civilized. But those two cities were cosmopolitan, certainly. So he had those, he resisted the British in those British wool suits.
And this was during the 1919
1919, revolts, revolution that happened. And he sent his son to Cambridge for PhD. So the idea, he was an entomologist, my uncle. His picture is up there. So this is what I like to focus on, that, engineering and medicine in particular, those two specialties. Textile engineers, you can say that over 80% since the independence in 1952, they trained at Leeds or British universities.
And it's really important for us at the Harris not to tell other people's stories, but to ask people to tell stories in their own words. So it was really important for us to make a connection with you in Cairo to tell those stories. And I think it's really lovely that your family feature in the commission, and you can read about their stories. And as you say, they've got such a fantastic story to tell.
I think it certainly is a curatorial decision from the beginning. Lindsay McCormick and Nicola Hood, they told me that the Imperial War Museum would like that there is a person story in there. And that's when Charlotte came in, that's my first introduction to Charlotte, that I didn't know that because I had not won the competition, right? I was invited to apply. It was not an open application. I was invited to apply, which means that there is a team who did the research and decided that those 3, 4, 5 artists we're going to communicate with and choose the best proposal. So I had not known yet at that time that Charlotte was involved. But I knew that the Imperial War Museum, and this is a commission, but I thought that the Harris was like the entire producer. I thought that the money went already to the Harris, and the Harris are choosing. But then later on, they told me, we insist that there is a person's story. Do you have? And I think I got this competition because of the person part in it. Because, I was lucky that I had the story. And then I had started research about my grandfather. My grandfather passed 23 years before I was born. In 2005, I woke up one day because as a child, as I grew up, I knew that I had a grandfather who was a king. How did this happen? And then exaggerations do happen in families, about heroism. But then when you find already newspaper articles in Egyptian, in several newspapers, I collected as much as 36 newspaper articles. I went to the Egyptian archives. So the thing was true, that the guy was a separatist, and the guy isolated Faraskur, the city that the name appears in the film. And geographically, this city was really blessed because in the north, it has the Mediterranean Sea. East, there is a lake. West, there is one branch of the Nile. So the only borders that the entire citizens of that place protected was the south. They all came out, they stole arms from the police station. They imprisoned the chief of police at that city and got all the arms and started protecting this border. That's when the British came from south to north to stop those revolts. So it was a very wise decision, British decision, that, okay, leave them, and eventually they sieged themselves because they are not politicians. They're farmers and people who own the farms. So the thing is, in 100 days, they submitted without a single bullet. So I had this story in me. In 2005, I created a film with the National Film Institute about this incident based on photographs. And I got all those photographs, I restored them, scanned them, restored them on Photoshop all the time, for 2005. And I had those in the drawers. So when Lindsay and Nicola contacted me and said there is an Imperial War Commission for the Harris Museum, but, can you tell a person's story? So I wrote a proposal, and I think, this person element is the thing that makes me speak to you here today.
And there are loads and loads of connections between the Harris, Preston and the Northwest with Egypt. And I mean, we've obviously got a collection of Egyptian artifacts, and there's a complex story there to tell, isn't there? I'm struck by the fact that the Harris's foundation stone was laid in 1882, which was the first year that British troops
came to Cairo,
Absolutely. Obviously, Preston imported Egyptian cotton, and we've got Horrocks, and the cotton famine. Is an integral part of Preston's story, because that's how Preston's parks were created, because of the workforce that weren't able to work in the mills during the 1860s cotton famine. And obviously, you've mentioned it already, but our first sort of major commission after we reopened was John Summerscale's Egyptian balcony, which
is phenomenal.
Crowns the building.
I'm privileged and I think you should fight to see his watercolors. Those are in the inventory, and they cannot all be exhibited. But the guy is a genius, and he was not even a first choice. He was third choice to send there. I mean, the guy, it shows the difference in the skill level of art education. The guy is brilliant, and his watercolors has those notes in pencil that he, in every single one, very descriptive of what he's seen, how he sees things. And I think one of the windows shows a couple of those watercolors. But I mean, people should see the entire. I mean, there must be one of those exhibitions in Gallery 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 about just about this work. It's important, and the book. You should seek funding to create a book for this guy.
There's certainly more work to do there, isn't it? It's a fantastic resource to have. And I'm just struck that Preston Corporation sent an artist to Egypt, you know, so early on in the Harris. But, you know, it's really lovely to sort of round that circle and have your work feature so strongly within the reopened Harris in 2025 as a major commission. And I know it was a real sort of collaborative project, wasn't it, to put this on? Totally, so, you know, I know some of the faces in this room were actually involved in creating the artwork. But, you know, would you like to say a little bit more about working with communities, volunteers, others?
It's first, I should thank the curators, because it's the longest curator-artist relationship I've ever had in my career, which is this year 39 years. The longest was 8 months when I did Manifesta in 2010. It's a European biennial. That year it happened in Spain. But when Lindsay and Nicola contacted me, it was 2023. And so I started developing the project, submitted a project of like 17, 18 pages with images because I had to justify what I'm doing now. And then Nicola and Lindsay started, you know, telling me, we had 6 drafts for the proposal before it was accepted, before I got the entire acceptance. And because we had to cover several aspects, the visuals that I would produce, the elements, production costs, but also how can we incorporate the community? And I think this, with artists, you know, who do this type of commissions, it's the challenge, is how to indulge the community in a work that it becomes not just that they come and watch. The easiest thing is that they come and watch. You open the studio or open the workspace, people watch you and ask questions and you answer, which is acceptable, but still, can we get people work with their own hands? Can we enroll people, like get their names and have them? Can you move to a university? Can we involve the university? And this actually in draft 6 was covered, in which we had to really cover everything. So we are actually talking about universities, University of Central Lancashire. At that time, it was called Central Lancashire.
You can't say that anymore.
No, you can't.
University of Lancashire.
Yeah, of course. So now I have to say Ireland and the United Kingdom. You know, like so. Yeah, University of Lancashire. Yeah, absolutely. But we're just starting to talk with the university led us later to make the carpets with the university in Egypt. You know, like see, the dialogue works. We went to them. We had an encounter with somebody from architecture. Apparently, this did not work out, but it worked with the School of Art and Design. With the School of Art and Design, it worked perfectly from day one. We had Andy, who's running the painting, the students. We met the first time. We agreed on what would be done on visit 2, the research visit 2, and that too was covered. All was covered in writing, and just the proposal to be finished, and you know, like we get to go from the Imperial War Museum to produce. This was like a lengthy project. I was just telling Lindsay and Nicola that on my computer I have like the Harris 2023, the Harris 2024, the Harris 2025, and I'd like 2026 to continue the stairs up. But basically, it's this 2 years and almost a half. This is the longest curator-artist relationship I've had ever. And I feel privileged because with every postponement of the opening, an element was added. So yeah, but it works because, you know, like we had the community covered from day one in writing. We agreed on the workshops. We added, you know, like they became 50 volunteers at the 3rd visit when I was here, and the Harris, the entire team, even the corporate communication and all the team, we agreed that it would be morning and evening sessions, 5 of 5, so that we can get as many people involved as possible. And I must, you know, like speak here about Ian because he's been with me in the entire.
Family, so.
Yeah, and Ian was one of the artists who did the temple inside there. Yeah.
We should talk about that, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
The Temple of the Loo, the Temple of the Toilet.
Loo, yeah. Temple of the Loo. The name came when we were working there. Actually, 100% of the work there is the work of the volunteers. You know, I just made a demo on a slice, small slice of the wall, which is almost 90 centimeters, but the entire team, the entire community team did those. And then on another day, we did the windows. We did two windows. I wanted to invade more and involve more people to take more windows, but they told me, no, the other windows, the marketing will have the other windows.
We did have to rein you in, yeah.
So the thing is, there is always, I think it's also, it was a learning curve for everybody, including myself, in a way that any white wall that you really think it should not be white enough, we can do something on it with the community, actually. And the room 9 here is a perfect example, it's everything here is selected by the community. Mm-hmm. So communities can curate, and the community can actually decide what we want in a museum. And this is the museum of the 21st century. Mm. The linear type of educational museum that takes you from prehistory until the end of time, in one single subject will not work anymore after the generation Y and Z, the millennial and post-millennials, people born after 1978 and people born after 1998, it will not work. And hence, generation Alpha, born after 2010, everybody needs to learn something in a capsule. It's the Instagram generation. So with every window tells one story about fashion, about industrial design, about the history, about the docks. About the cotton, about anything, every single window telling a story. That's the time capsule that you need to educate the younger generation with. People like myself, I'm Generation X, born 1963. I used to educate more. If you take me into that museum, I would come for a week. But I need to learn the story from the beginning of Adam and Eve, or the aliens who came from other stars to be Adam and Eve, whatever, until where we are today. It's a different learning, with time we evolve, it's organic, it's fluid, and I think the Harris succeeds big time in there. And it was very clear with the curators that the new Harris, the neo-Harris, the new Harris that's opening now, needs to address subjects, the audience in a different language. And I think this comes from the leadership because, I had not known, nobody would know that, probably except the curators as team members, of how the walls would look like, how the windows would look like. Probably knew because you've seen the architectural designs. But I think seeing the opening at the several stages of the opening, public and stakeholders and everything, here it shows why this curatorial dialogue sustained for 2.5 years. It was important. Every element needs to be studied. First, cleared budget-wise, which is important, and that Charlotte was with me in one of the workshops and in another meeting and here. The Imperial War Museum was overseeing at all times, especially now that I know that the Imperial War Museum had 20 commissions. Because, 20 commissions scattered all over the United Kingdom. It's not with the Harris. So this entails, careful planning and implementation and follow-up and monitoring and evaluation. And I enjoyed every bit of it for 2.5 years. And thanks to, the 3 ladies who actually produced me.
Yeah. And we teased you, really, didn't we? Because when you first came over, it was an empty building, and I think your eyes lit up. And
contractors. And I had to put the yellow thing up and put the thing in here. And I say, but why would I? No, this is safety and insurance. The insurance will not pay a dime if you don't put this on. It's at the beginning, honestly, it touches your heart when you see a building done from scratch, because even the walls were stripped. There was zero cladding. Everything had to be on. From zero. I met Heather, the lady of the director of restoring and restoration, I think. And then you would never imagine that those gildings and those, every single detail in the ceiling is factory setting, as if the Harris was built today.
It's really architectural. It feels really integral, I think. So, as you come out of that sort of Port Cochere area, the area that you've created at the front, it draws people in. You've obviously got your film that people can engage with, images that have been animated, which are really, really lovely and engaging. And then you've got the sort of army that marches up the stairs, the textile pieces on the landing, and then even right up to the second floor, where in the case you've got objects that you've mummified from your studio, haven't you? Do you want to say a little bit about those items?
Yeah, the mummified. Well, I have. My peers here, the artists whom I worked with during the past, the not Central Lancashire, the Lancashire, the Lancashire artists whom I worked with. They know the story. I have three garbage cans. One organic that I change every other day, but then I have one for the paper and one for the objects that I don't use from the studio. Every now and then I get them and I mummify them because I don't throw anything. I'm a hoarder. I collect. But those things, like when a coffee machine, Italian coffee machine gets, it burns. You forget it on fire and then suddenly it's useless anymore. It's corroded, eroded, So I don't throw it. I put in that, like a big plastic bin, And then I got those, and on and off, I used to soak linen, parts of linen from the canvas. I soak it in tea, coffee, and pomegranate peel. Heat it in a big pan. It gives you this impression that it's like 7,000 years old. You just rinse it afterwards. Rinse it, not with soap, rinse just water. When it's dry 2 days later. And then you cut it to small shreds, pieces, and then you stick with the acrylic gel. So everything, it looks as if it's like really the real thing, The idea was it works with the elements that I have on the wall. 2009, I started to create those military elements, to create a hieroglyph based on military iconography. Those mummified objects are the sculptural counterpart or antichrist, if you want, or physical projection of what goes on the flat surface of the painting or the wall. Those alphabets and military elements, you see all those objects. I started first mummifying plastic guns that I used to buy in the street, and then flea markets. I'm an addict to flea markets. So I used to cover those, and they look like, it looks like really out of a tomb, especially when it's dry, fully dry. You immerse it in a bit of sand, and it looks like actually it. So the idea was to create something for future archaeology. What would people, after 1,000 years, when they come, if they look for us, what is the language we used to speak? What were our tools to communicate with each other? It's the gun, the sniper, the chopper, the tank. It's a game, you play games as well. It's somebody who's like the artist who wants to create like a video game, a GTA video game that is not GTA video game, that is not numerical, digital, binary, or 0-1. It's more of the physical object, physical world that responds to actually our virtual world that we create in video games and the news. You open CNN or Fox News or even BBC Arabic or BBC English, you find that part of it, in order to get advertising, you need to show conflict, war. You need to show something happening because, good news are not good news. They don't make news, good news. Yeah.
And I'm always sort of interested in what people would think if they could see the objects that are displayed in museums across the world. What would they think about their objects of everyday life being put in a glass case?
Yeah. Look at Damien Hirst. What will happen 1,000 years? Putting a shark in a tank. There will be a big question mark. The same thing. When they look for alphabets. It's actually what we have in museums now is super interesting because if somebody looks for us, especially in museums, all sorts of museums, from natural history to museum of coins to everything. If people look for us 1,000 years and if we don't, if the communication is cut and then people start to look for us, they will think that we are definitely bananas, a generation of, bananas. Everybody's out of his mind.
And we've got a collection of Egyptology
Yes.
that came through our collaboration with the Egyptian Research Account. So there are stories to explore about why we have these things. But I believe you're particularly taken with a figure of Osiris.
Osiris, a small Osiris, 18th dynasty. I wanted to take home, but the curators would not allow me. Especially after making me wear gloves, hold it in my hands, and I say that, guys, what about if I give you a few things from my work and then you leave me get away with that? And they said no.
I mean, there would be a sort of delightful irony, wouldn't there, if you took that back with you? Because
and then the most important thing, the inventory would not notice. But I would not do that, because that piece here is much more important. And there was an article in the New York Times in which, Egypt has this Indiana Jones figure. He's a friend, Khaled Hafez, who appears in every National Geographic thing. And I did one time a study tour with him in Denmark. The National Authority of Tourism gave him 5 lectures, and they gave me 1, okay? Because he's able to fill aeroplanes, right? And I'm not feeling anything. I barely talk to my friends. So the thing is, there was this idea. He wants to get back the head of Nefertiti from Berlin, from the new museum. I'm totally against it. So in this New York Times article, there was they interviewed 6 people, and I'm number 6. I'm the only one who was against, because I said that this head of Nefertiti brings more people to Egypt than if it stays in the. Not everybody is able to travel to Egypt, and then Egypt has enough to fill the entire world museums, and then more, So the idea is Egypt has magnificent pieces. When you look at the Grand Egyptian Museum, it's phenomenal. It's opening in less than a month. But this head in Berlin, it's treated in a way, marketed in a way, branded in a way that actually brings tourists to Egypt since it came out of the vault, because it was, Adolf Hitler had this on his desk together with Greek pieces and Roman pieces. And then they disappeared from 1945 till 1952. They were in a bank or a vault. And then when it appeared, it has been treated magnificently. And ever since, it's bringing people to Egypt. I would do the marketing for that head. I beg you, please go see it at the new museum. The Germans are great in museology as well. So this new museum, they created the dome they put it in this new museum. It has a dome. They put it in the dome room, and then they painted all the walls in a color that very much close to the crown, right? So it's as if it's made there. It's created for that place, and they have nothing around, but in an annex room, an antechamber, they have the smaller pieces they got from different periods of the 18th dynasty. So pieces like that Osiris, which is a bronze piece, black bronze piece. Here, it does a better function than if it goes there, it will get lost among, gazillions of other pieces. Plus, it belongs to the Harris from day one. It's part of the heritage of the place, because that history is part of the history of the world.
And we're getting better at sort of looking into those stories about why we have things, and that's important as well, isn't it, to have objects that allow you to explore all of that and be upfront about the history of the Harris as well as what it's on.
Egyptology is British. The science is created during the British time. Petrie is British. Tutankhamun is British produced, British discovered by an artist, Howard Carter, who actually went to Cairo as a draftsman to paint tombs. He was not an Egyptologist by any training, by any means. So the idea is this exchange is actually what I try to focus on in my work.
And we've covered the sort of real effort that the army that created the army that's now on the stairs in Preston.
Yes.
But obviously you worked with people in Cairo to produce the fabulous textiles on the landings. I wonder if you just tell us a bit more about those.
Oriental weavers. See, it's another curatorial dialogue. When we spoke about universities, the Lancashire, I said that I'm teaching at the beginning. I said that give me a letter with the logo of the Imperial War Museum, logo of the Harris, in order to seek sponsorship from my university in order to produce more pieces. It was during the dialogue before like the end of like the proposal. So that's when the British University in Egypt, which is actually, the British University is the franchisee of the Manchester Metropolitan School of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. So it's family, it's separated by 40, 40 minutes by train. And the owners of the university are the same owners of the Oriental Weavers. It's just a different business unit. So I talked to the dean, who is a friend, who actually has been a professor here in the United Kingdom for 26 years at Lincoln. He's an architect, and he told me, something, this thing with the Harris. And I was telling him that I'm thinking I need money from the university because I intend to do textiles to, probably carpets or, like those, I don't know the name in English, but in Egypt you call it khayamiyya, like the tent weave, which is double layer, and then you put the elements patchwork, like sewn into it. And he told me, you don't need to do that. That the Oriental Weavers belong to the university. Let's talk to the CEO of the Oriental Weavers. And he talked to me, and we talked to them. So this collaboration happened by, I would say that the initial thing happened with the dialogue with the curators about involving the university as part of the community. Yes. This opened the door for more universities because I teach in two. I teach at Virginia Commonwealth in Doha. I teach art and design, and I teach photography and film at the British University in Egypt. So, the Oriental Weavers, the CEO said yes immediately. What dimensions do you want? So I said, let me go in my research trip to get the dimensions. First research trip, we got the dimensions, but we improved them in the second because, we had a trick. The two carpets are identical in size, but the walls are not identical in centimetrage. The centimeters are not the same. So we decided to be safe after talking to Gilly, the team member who would hang it. They said the best way is to do it that way. Get them identical, because for production reasons, it's best to do it that way. And the Oriental Weavers did not just stop the mill for one day to produce the sample and another day to produce those two pieces. Mm-hmm. They actually gave me their team of designers. And I talked about that in the film, it's the designers who actually, proposed to me to put the Eye of Horus. And then in my second visit, when I looked at their two identical spaces, and then what would be the viewer experience if we go in and you have those two eyes. But the idea to do it in which color? So we decided to do it with no color at all, 2 levels. It's the shadow that makes that it's not colored at all. I don't know that as an artist because it's not part of my expertise as an artist, but it took, industrial designers to be able to propose that. They showed me their samples. It's among the top 5 exporters of machine carpets in the world. So they have like an infinite number of solutions if you ever need to do an infinite number of solutions. Days working with them and the guys, let's work with cotton and linen. And then they showed me the infinite number of cotton until the weave, I fell in love with it the moment I saw it because it was a simple solution that nobody asked for a lot. They do this weave in summer homes, in the home in which people go for a month a year. Mm-hmm. And they put it on the floor because it takes the sand and the mud from the shoes and the feet. But that was perfect to hang, and cotton. It's the weave itself. It looks human.
Mm. And you've discovered James Hibbett's secret. Architect of the Harris didn't quite get the walls even.
No, the walls are even. It's just that, the centimeters, there are like 7 centimeters in one wall that are a bit wider. It happens, when you do those, they call the variance, and they have like statistical percentage, which is totally legitimate. The normal eye would not get it from that distance. And then I would not look at the folds when I have those columns come on in the ceilings. It's absolute perfection. The architecture of the Harris is sublime,
And you've been sort of researching the technology and the history of spinning and weaving in Lancashire as well.
Yes.
So I was just struck when you were talking about embracing new technology, and obviously the way that those
AI,
hanging textiles have been produced is a very modern process. But yes, you've got AI in the video film. But you also visited Queen Street Mill in Burnley, didn't you, as well?
Burnley. Burnley is, and I used the voice that I shot. It's an iPhone, but 4K sound. I shot in Burnley with the curators. We went. We spent a day in that, and I got the voice of the machine and of the guide. Actually, I'm having the sound with the credits at the end. We have. It's like the anticlimax of the entire thing. You have the voice of the mill, the actual mills of Burnley working, and the sound of the guide speaking about how many machines were, how machines worked, and showing us the tools, the wooden tools of it's an ingenious invention basically. The mill as we know it today, the Industrial Revolution mill is an ingenious invention.
Well, we're really, really pleased to have that commission as such an integral part of the new and reopened Harris. It's really striking, it's really engaging, so it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you and the Imperial War Museum on this fantastic commission.
Thank you.
And it's probably got to the point where we can throw open some questions to the audience, because you may well have thought of things to ask along the way. So, yeah.
So over the course of the project, you said you've done sort of several visits to Preston. Four visits in total.
Visits, yeah.
Was there anything during those visits that surprised you in terms of unexpected connections between Preston and Egypt? So obviously you already had something in mind, that there's the cotton industry and already a rich history, but was there anything you came over and you thought, wow, I didn't expect that similarity between sort of Preston and Egypt, and did it influence your work at all, or change your work?
Thank you for that question. You know what influenced, I have two levels to answer that. The Harris alone, because the Harris helped educate me on the history of Preston. This is integral. Like my first research visit, in Egypt, what is branded is Horace's as a company, but we don't know where it comes from. It comes from England. And by the way, in Egypt, if you say Great Britain, it's England. And Tom Jones is from Wales. Those are, Egypt is like that, because Tom Jones, popularity because the English is so comprehensible for Egyptians, so every word is discernible, you can understand. But the interesting thing, engineers know from the textile, Egyptian engineers know from the textile industry, the University of Leeds, because this University of Leeds produced like every leadership in engineering of textile in Egypt came from Leeds. They came to Leeds, educated, a master's or PhD or both, and then they go back. So there are, it's like Cambridge and Oxford for the other, for like literature or other things. Leeds is for the textile engineering. But Preston, I owe it to the Harris to know exactly this relationship. And with every visit, like in my fourth visit, it's my first time to see like all the windows up, third and fourth visits actually. The third visit, there is this fashion, the Horace's fashion, where you have like this nightgown in which I saw my mother, my grandmother in. So my grandmother had that, but this was really stunning because it's as if in the window I'm seeing, like a family member. We had this fashion, this fabric, this cloth, this design in Cairo, and we had the dealer, the agent. You get me? It's with every visit that I see the similarity, but there are cities, I'm speaking now as an artist, there are cities who talk to you from day one, it doesn't mean a big or a small city, right? And cities that, you pass by and then you feel like you don't want to come again. It has nothing to do with the people, it has nothing to do with the architecture, there is this feeling that it cannot be put into words. But Preston from day one, it's to me like Sarajevo. Like when the first day I set foot in Sarajevo, I said that I lived in that place before. It's that close. Preston is like those cities, like as an artist, I'm privileged to have traveled in 39 years, exhibited in a few countries, and some cities talk to you immediately. And I think part of it also, it's again, the Harris team, the entire Harris team, from leadership to the youngest people working, because when the work that you come to do in that city flows and works flawlessly, you start to connect with the city and start to see the lake and start to take the bus back and forth until the end of the line and take another ticket backwards and repeat it with every visit, because, everything works. It's like a good day that happened to me in the 4 visits. It has always been a good day. And the work, even part of that work was done in Doha, Qatar. Because, with postponement, I told the curators, sorry, I have to take another project in Doha, but I'll be working with you, at least operating my own designers and the filmmakers, operating my own studio remotely. So what happened, I go to Doha and I discovered that I have this laser machine and the CNC machine. So I start creating those figures, and then I immediately asked for an emergency meeting with Lindsay and Nicola. And I said, please ask the University of Lancashire, because I've seen in the second visit, I've seen a machine, a CNC machine and a laser machine, and I think Tracy can do those cutouts, and it works. And everything on the walls is made by Lancashire, the laser. This is serendipity. It was not planned. A postponement led me in another city, and the other city led me to a machine by sheer coincidence that we have seen in a visit here, the second visit here, and it works. So this was another level of actually the community working apart, because Tracy was supposed, the team Art Lab, Tracy, Nick, Chris, and Catherine, those are the artists who printed my silk screens. But then, we evolved them more into, like a laser cutting to have those precise shapes in the principal building here. So we have 2 cutouts. A cutout that was done in the Temple of the Lou there. Those are hand cut by the community, and the other one up. The name of the Temple of the Lou came when we were working, when we were doing it, actually. So to answer your question, yes, the cotton brought us together, actually, and with it, technology, because, like the improvement of the Egyptian factories, all the machines came from England, like the United Kingdom, England, Ian. Ian is a co-worker and an artist. By the way, he is a painter initially, but he's modest, he doesn't speak it, but he worked a big part, an integral part of the building there, the Lou, the Temple of the Lou, and also 2 of the windows. So he is a co-worker in that project.
Thank you very much for that plug. But there is a reason why I'm modest about my work. I believe I've got a lot to be modest about. The talk tonight is very enjoyable. You put a lot of information in it that I didn't know about. Well, why should I know about it? But you've had a lot of depth to my understanding of the project, and I'm very grateful for that. My question is, have you got ambition to come back again? Because
I would love
even when you talk about bland white walls, as taking the veil off my eyes and looking around, they're very, very white, these walls.
See,
and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but is there any?
He understands.
Any instant inspiration comes to you about a theme for someone, maybe you, decorating this, improving this space? Yeah.
See, no, please. Thank you, Ian, for saying that. The hope to come back, yes, I would like to come back. Especially that you have more stairs and more banisters and more stuff up there. and the more I looked at it and the more I climbed up until the balcony, the Somerset balcony, I feel like my hands are, itchy. Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to work more with the community in there. What inspired me is still the curatorial work, because what we agreed on the paper, we achieved 70%, but we performed 115%. Because, you know, still, when I wrote the proposal, I had not seen the Harris. And when you see it on plans, it's not like at all when you see it physically. And when you see the physical space, even when contractors were in here, the building is impressive, inside and outside. It's, you know, like it's a huge responsibility that, you know, drove me all the time to think and question. That's why when I always say that with Lindsay and Nicola in our dialogues, I mean, it's exactly like in the government or corporate world, in which you have the people of the marketing, like the artists, they want to shoot, but then, you know, they have the people of the finance telling them, no, we cannot pay that. But it's not the finance, but basically it's the limitation of the architecture. So part of the, I will speak about the inspiration when I came. It's the architecture of the space that inspired me entirely to do the way, and actually Lindsay can tell you about a mini conflict between Nicola and I, you know, because we disagreed on something, but I give it to them. They allowed me to do it the way I wanted, you know, but this was late at the project, in which it was late, but not too late, but it was late in the project in which, like, it's within still the limits of the Imperial War Museum Commission, and I got permission from the leadership of the museum. So it was within policies, procedures, but still, it's the architecture that inspires you each time you're here. Like the space of the carpets, it had to be tailored. And I would not know that when I'm there without seeing the place. It had to be, you know, all those threads dangling down. It covers a bit of the centimeters that visually we will never know the difference. The space is huge and awesome, and it dictates respect. So no matter how you dream, you know, your inspiration, still it's always bound by those limits of the place, because part of the site specificity, even as science, is to respect the place, and the artwork blends with the space without inflicting any sort of extra energy on it, you know, because the architecture must stay as it is. We just, you know, like add a bit of salt and pepper to it in order to make the viewers live with the thing of it. And hence also it came with the, for instance, a part of that inspiration that came from the architecture is you'll find all those military elements coming from all those fallen men on the walls, on the two walls. We use the same color of the paper. So you have all those fallen men with all those, you know, like uniforms, which is 100% British. You know, the uniforms, World War I and II, all those research icons or outlets. They would not have done without the second research visit, when we said that we're going to do the banister, parallel to the banister, and coming out of those martyrs, you know. So the principal inspiration, before I came here, it was the personal history and the research with the cotton industry, but I would say that the work changed dramatically with the space, and this entailed very close relationship with the curators, because we were almost living together in the space at all times.
So creativity is a process, and it's influenced by places and experiences and people. So let's look forward to a more spicy Harris in the future. Yeah. Well seasoned, sorry, not.
If you can get me like a governor order to do like the second floor, I would love that.
Get a machine gun.
So I think we've got time for one more question, and then we need to wrap up. Does anybody have a final question for the evening?
Which artists have inspired you in your life, and
Thank you for that question. I have 5 gods of painting. You know, those, and I guess I decided after having gone into that evening classes at the Fine Art School, because apart from my 2 professors, I have 5 people. I have Picasso as a disruptive figure, Gustave Klimt, Egon Schiele, Jean-Michel Basquiat, and a person I met at his last days, Robert Rauschenberg. And Robert Rauschenberg affects my work a lot. Part of my techniques as a painter comes from Basquiat and Robert Rauschenberg. The first 3, those are inspiration that happened, you know, like probably I got influenced with early in my career as I moved on. But it's Robert Rauschenberg is what I settled on, and I guess this is, I mean, it will be my last reference, because use the printing, the drawing, the painting, the dripping, the object in the painting, the mixed media. I guess Robert Rauschenberg is one of the most underrated artists, because they put him in the pop art category. But Robert Rauschenberg, for instance, had the first book written about him at the age of like 70 plus, which is, I think it's a disaster in the art world. How you know, like, how we treat deep art into sometimes, you know, like, also the universe plays a part. We must say that I'm here today, part of it, talent, part hard work, but a big part also luck. Because, you know, like, it depends, change the committee of selection, the results will change. Always, you know, like in any competition, anything that needs evaluation, change the committee, results will change. So I think Robert Rauschenberg is one of those artists in which, you know, like, we started appreciating Robert Rauschenberg after he passed, you know? I think so. But those 5 influenced my work at all times. And Picasso, you know, like, those images, the photographs taken of him during his life in his Breton t-shirt, they were done by 3 photographers. You have an impression it's one session of photography, no, in which he plays with a pistol, like a 6-bullet pistol. He's with a brush, he's on the Michael Tonnet rocking chair, or he's on a chair. All those in his studio, those studio images, they played a part in me growing up. You know, so I have 6 of the rocking chairs of Michael Tonnet, the designer. I collected them from flea markets. I mummify a lot of pistols. So basically, and of course I have the Breton t-shirt. I mean, like, you get it when you're 21.
Oh, Khaled, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you.
Thank you immensely.
Really proud of the commission that you've created with people in this room, and it's been a huge collaborative effort.
Thank you for that. And I'd like to thank honestly, the Imperial War Museum and the Harris team, the entire Harris team, like the entire pyramid, the hierarchy. You've been a great family, because 2.5 years of work, and it's enough to tolerate me when I'm singing as I work on it. But this...
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you again to the Imperial War Museum's 14 to 18 Now Legacy Fund. Thank you for the support. Please could you put your hands together and thank Khaled Hafez.
Thank you.
And everybody involved.
It's been a lovely evening. Thank you.